A big part of this channel will be behavioral blind spots. So you're going to see the overtly animated face dash behavioral blind spots. And I'm going to be talking about this nonstop. And I just want to discuss the concept of a behavioral blind spot at a macro level before diving into the specifics. So first, a definition: a behavioral blind spot is a pattern of communication or behavior that you are not aware of, which often creates a gap between intention and perception. And what that really means is you're intending to come across a certain way, but because of a pattern in your communication, the perception of your behavior is a lot different than your intention. So a couple of examples about this. First, the one that always jumps to mind the most was, I had this woman in one of my body language classes years ago who came up after the class and she said, listen, I'm having a really difficult time connecting with the other mothers at my kid's school. And I don't really have friends in the neighborhood, and I really have no idea why. And I looked at her and I sort of laughed and I was like, do you smile at all your friends in that creepy manner you've been smiling at me in this entire class? And she was like caught back, and she actually genuinely laughed, and she was like, what do you mean? And for her, her smile timing was completely off. So, there's a lot of discussions about smiling. It's probably one of the most robust, interesting facial expressions. There's hundreds of different variations of smile, and right now you have your own sort of customized variations. She would do this thing where she would go from a neutral state to the peak of her smile incredibly quickly. So you'd be talking to her and she'd be like, and she would hold it like that, her like 2 or 3 seconds, and it would go away. So the entire class, this woman was looking at me like, oh. And the reason why she is that perception, her intention was, I'm interested, this is exciting, so on and so forth, but the perception is fake, because actual smile timing doesn't look like that. It doesn't look, in these videos and these behavioral blind spots, I'll actually show you people with this issue. But when I brought it up with her, I was like, yeah, it's because your smile timing's all off. It's just, and she says, my smile timing, what do you mean? And when she was born and raised in China, moved to America, took a communications course. The communication course person said, listen, you don't smile enough. So she went home, she stood in front of a mirror, smiled over and over and over again until she nailed it, right? But when you're in front of a mirror, you're just nailing the top side of a smile. You're not nailing the whole morphology of it, the beginning, the onset, the offset, none of that. So what this created was just this creepy looking smile that a lot of people had a difficult time connecting with. And that was an example of a blind spot. So her intention was to come across excited and engaged and so on and so forth. But as a result of this blind spot, the exact opposite happens. Another example of this is, I think conversational patterns is a big blind spot for a lot of people. So for example, if you're having a conversation with someone, there are certain people out there that are hyper interested in others. So they'll be asking the question, they'll be driving the conversation, but then the conversation's done and one person knows a ton of stuff about the other person and the other person knows nothing about the person asking the questions. There's this like fundamental imbalance in how much information or how much you're self-disclosing in that sort of dynamic or in that pattern. And these things come up in so many different ways: language, movement. I'm going to be going over probably dozens and dozens and dozens of these. We are launching a study called the social battery, and a big reason behind the social battery is to identify this in people, and I want to actually materially show you examples of these behaviors. With those examples in mind, there are a couple of things I want to say about blind spots. So first, there is a duality to the identification of them. I'm going over these videos because, one, seeing blind spots in others are going to allow you to see the blind spots that you have in yourself. But second, by recognizing that a blind spot is the reason for a mismatch between intention and perception in someone, you just get much better at reading behavior. Like, a lot of people think that they're so gifted when it comes to reading or breaking down behavior, but if you're not able to parse out, listen, this person might not be an asshole, they're just coming across that way because of a blind spot, you're probably not able to recognize or read the raw reality of what it actually is going on. So a big portion or reason of these videos is, you might have somebody that you worked with, or you might someone in a relationship with, or someone that could have been your wife or husband, but because of a combination of blind spots that person had, you weren't able to form a connection because you didn't accurately assess their intentions. And that's a big reason why I am doing this video. Second, there is always a source of a blind spot. So you want to identify the reason you are displaying a pattern before reducing it. And that's why you want to usually go back into your past. A lot of these come from moments where you're filled with anxiety, or moments where an unqualified person tells you what you're doing wrong and doesn't understand the impact of that. So that example from my client that was from China, like, you never tell someone to just like smile more. It's like one of the worst pieces of advice you could ever give. And the reason why is smiles are not binary. You're not, yes, you're smiling, or no, you're not smiling. They look so different. So if you're anxious and you tell someone to smile who's anxious, they're going to look like an anxious smile. So it's not good advice to tell these people to smile over and over again. So you really want to look at the core of where you started to create that pattern. It's really important. Now, the third thing is sort of a challenge. Before I start releasing these videos, which will happen in about a week from now, if you're curious about what patterns you might have, which I know most people are by watching this video, I challenge you to bring up this concept of a behavioral blind spot to the people close to you and ask them what they think yours are. It's a very humbling experience, and usually like your wife, your husband, your partner, the people that work close to you, they pick up on these subtle patterns, right? And they'll know what they actually are, and they can be very, very, very helpful in identifying them. So a lot of blind spots to come. My random ending is going to be a story. So this is a funny one. I was teaching at CUNY, and at the time I used to wear a bunch of blazers and a t-shirt. So I wear like blazers, t-shirt, jeans, and shoes to teach, right? And in my first class was like a pretty withdrawn, quiet class. And this was only like the second class that I ever taught. There's like a new semester. And everybody's like looking at me weird and making jokes and laughing. And I'm like, what the hell is so funny? And all of them are just like, embarrassed. And I'm like, well, guys, what's funny? Like, what's going on? And they're like, your shirt. And I'm like, what's wrong with my shirt? And I look down and I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with my shirt. Like, look at your shirt. And I couldn't figure it out. And what I had was, I had a shirt that had all the names of streets in New York City. So it was like, you know, and in the middle, there was one that said Canal Street. But because of my blazer, the C was cut off and it just said anal in the middle of my chest. And I would wear this shirt with that thing on all around the city and everywhere I went, and complete blind spot. No idea what was happening. I laughed really, really, really hard after that. And I'll never forget that story of real pragmatic blind spot. So more to come. If you talk to your family and friends and they tell you what their blind spot is, post below. I'll take a look at them, comment on them. Sometimes they're going to be wrong with it, but for the most part, they're going to be pretty accurate at what that is. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, all those things. And let me know if you enjoy these videos. The comment section is so damn important because usually I'm used to being in front of people to do this kind of thing. And now it's just a one-way form of communication. So the comments, the likes, the dislikes, all of that really, really, really does help. Talk to you soon.